Our episode today is going to be about Wicked and Wicked for Good.
I can see why people like it.
Is the villain created or is the villain innate?
The Munchkins weren't little people.
About 20 minutes in, I was like, oh, I'm looking at the face of evil. Hello, and welcome to the Pop Culture Contrarian with Thomas, Sterling, and Andrew.
Hello.
Hello, guys.
Our episode today is going to be about Wicked, both parts 1 and 2, so Wicked and Wicked for Good. But before we get to that, wherever you're listening to this podcast, hit the bell icon if you're on YouTube so you see when we upload a new video. If you're on Spotify or wherever else, make sure to like and subscribe and leave us a comment. Let us know what you think we should talk about next. That's one of the best things you can do to support us. The best thing you can do is go to patriotpost.us and subscribe to our free daily newsletter. It comes out Monday through Friday at noon. It's right. It's free. Go do that. And let's get started. All right, guys. So we all went and watched
Wizard of Oz.
But some people without brains do an awful lot of talking, don't they?
Yes.
Yes.
That was awesome.
We watched Wicked 2024 and Wicked for Good 2025. So we watched two musicals, so we're all that much more gay because we watched musicals.
Gay!
All right, now that I've gotten us good and properly canceled. This is a very profoundly male reaction to Wicked and Wicked 2. These are stories aimed mostly at girls and women.
Yes.
And so they're going to have a very different reaction. They're going to focus on the romance. They're going to focus on the relationship between Glinda and Elphaba, which is touching.
Yeah.
Technically. And I understand, I think, why women would have that reaction. I'm not a woman. I can't speak to what women feel, so I wasn't trying to provide that side of the commentary. You can listen to women explain what they felt when they watched these movies.
Sure.
All right, guys. So we watched these movies. Let's just start right at the beginning. Andrew, just start us off. What did you think?
Well, there's two different ways you can approach this. You can either approach it just from I'm not thinking about this and sitting down to be entertained. Mm-hmm. And from that perspective, I think it was highly entertaining. Or you can do what we do and deep dive into all of the themes and subtleties and implications. And from that perspective, it was deeply disturbing.
I'll agree there. You're going to hear a lot from me this episode, y'all. So brace yourselves. Thomas, what did you think?
It's my new favorite movie.
Liar! Liar!
It was entertaining. It was very much kind of reminded me of the original in ways, just for a modern world.
Mm-hmm. So I went into this. I do kind of like musicals. Like I enjoy Phantom of the Opera, Les Mis, some of the others. I like the original Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, same here. Musicals are cool.
So like Thomas, I think you don't like musicals much. Is that right?
There's a few that I enjoy.
Do you like Oklahoma?
What a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day.
Not really.
Okay, I want you to say no here, Thomas. So say no for me.
I think that there's some that I hold close.
Thomas
like,
has to have nuance in every
Sound
answer.
of
I just want him to say no. Say no.
The Sound of Music is one of my favorites.
Okay.
I grew up on that and have seen it many times.
Okay, I'm going to do your part now that you've had your nuance.
Yeah.
Thomas, you don't like musicals, is that right? No, I don't. Okay. I do rather like musicals. So
I have enjoyed some.
Okay, so I went into this thinking, this will be fun. I don't mind musicals. I'm sure I'll walk out humming some of these. And the first one is like 2.5 hours long. The second one is 2 hours and 15 minutes. And about 20 minutes in to the first episode, I was like, oh, I'm looking at the face of evil. Oh. I mean, that sounds like hyperbole. I'm not being hyperbolical.
It's hyperbole, but
no, that's how I felt. That's how I felt. So it's not hyperbole.
he felt hyperbolic. I
No,
believe.
okay. No. Yeah. I didn't. I'm
Sterling
right about this. I
is
know I sound
hyperbolic.
crazy, but I'm right here. So anyhow, safe to say I wasn't a huge, tremendous fan of this.
But were the songs catchy?
Yeah, some of the songs were catchy. I've been humming No One Mourns the Wicked, today, which is not my favorite song from the movie, but it's the one that stuck with me.
I have like all the earworms, and they're like popping up at the most unopportune moments, and I'm just starting to sing it. The problem is, further, my wife really loves all the music from this, and we're both musicians, so it's just like we're in this feedback loop of infinite wickedness.
Yeah.
So had you heard any of this music prior to seeing the movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that would help to reinforce it, because honestly, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I don't remember any of the songs.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Because like Defying Gravity was pretty much a smash hit. I think in general, if you're in tune with the kind of people who like Wicked at all, then you probably have heard Defying Gravity for years already.
Oh, yeah. And I've got lots of friends who probably would identify and be in this camp solidly and think that this is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
So how much of this is because you were previously exposed to these songs versus seeing them
For
in
me,
the movie?
quite a lot, just because of the people I know and people I love, and they like this kind of stuff.
It must have been interesting to see then the songs then acted out on the screen and all the themes being pulled from them in that manner.
Yeah, and just to make it clear where I'm coming from with this, I have never actually seen any of this until we watched both these back to back. I've been told about it for years by a lot of people that I know. People raving about the stage play that they like, oh, I went to see it on Broadway and talking about it, or the book or whatever, and just talking about it. So, but this was my first genuine exposure.
To that caveat, Andrew, I, again, haven't seen the musical. I haven't read Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, which is the book that the musical's based on, and then the movies are based on the musical, so it gets really complicated.
Why don't you explain this to me like I am an 8-year-old?
Because the book is also based on The Wizard of Oz, really the movie, but then the movie's based on the book. There's a lot of levels here.
Why don't you explain this to me like I'm 5?
I kind of wish we'd had time to go through and read or watch all of the different things involved here. I don't think it would fit in one podcast episode.
No.
But maybe I'll have to go do that and then write it up when I'm done or something.
We can have our own Wicked Part 2.
Yes, Wicked Part 2. I have read the original Wizard of Oz book, and then I've seen the movie everyone's seen. There's a lot here. So going back to the musical on Broadway, I think that's where like Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel got their start. And if you know those names, you know those names, and they're huge in that world. But like Idina Menzel, you might know she's the voice of Elsa in Frozen.
Let it go, I am one with the wind and sky.
They have fantastic voices. They can really deliver these songs. In the movies, you have Cynthia Erivo playing the Wicked Witch. For Glinda, you have Ariana Grande. All the musical parts do really, really well. Like they can carry these tunes. They have great voices. I don't know that I'd say they're better than their counterparts from the musical, but they're very good. Do y'all have any idea what Kristen Chenoweth or Idina Menzel look like?
Today?
Or
ever?
Yeah.
Did they make cameos?
They made a cameo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the Wizorama or something, it's called something like that in the first movie, they make cameos as some of the elders of Oz or something like that. Mm-hmm. And just when I was listening to them singing, I was like, wow, I think they've got just better voices than the two stars of this movie. But
yeah.
You know, they have one good song, and it's a good song.
Yeah.
So
well, I
it's
mean,
nice
they're
to see them.
Broadway actresses. I mean, that's the best of the best.
Yeah. Referencing my own extreme opinions in the past, like I really don't like Andor. Y'all remember that from that episode if you've watched that one. I think I'm more based in reality on this one than I am on Andor. I think with Andor, my connection to Star Wars and how much it means to me made me a little bit less able to put things in a fair way. For this one, I don't have a strong connection to Wicked or the Wizard of Oz. So I think I'm able to be a little bit more fair. What's the first thing y'all noticed in this movie? The first thing that really struck you? Because I know what it is for me. Y'all, was there a moment where it's like, oh, I didn't expect that?
Yeah. The Munchkins weren't little people.
Okay.
That was the most disappointing aspect of this film for me.
Yeah.
Bar none. That was it. I was like, what?
Yeah, they're supposed to be little people.
I mean, what is this?
Yeah, I was confused by that. I was like, are they like supposed to be forced perspective? But they're not. They're just normal size.
No,
maybe
I
a
mean,
little bit short, maybe like 5'2" or something.
When they have him step up on the book to be as tall as Fierro, I'm like, but then he's standing the rest of the film. I'm like, yeah, he's only like maybe an inch shorter. What is this?
Yeah, he's not a Munchkin in any meaningful way.
No, that was a little bit kind of threw me. But I mean,
So that's not
it wasn't a huge like, oh,
Right.
this movie's worthless now.
Well, that's not the thing that struck me. I did notice that. Andrew, was there anything that when you were watching, there was something early that for me was just like, oh,
Well, I mean, in the very beginning of the film, again, spoilers, if you don't already know that, if
Yeah.
you watched the show, listen to the show. This is a spoiler-filled podcast. It starts out with themes of infidelity
yes,
and basically racism.
yes, that's exactly it. That's what I noticed. So immediately you see the Wicked Witch, Elphaba's parents, and it's the mom and the dad's going off, and there's no sign that anything's wrong. The dad has to go work, and the mom's just like, oh, go on, don't worry about me. The moment he steps out the door, she welcomes in her lover who, they don't get explicit about it, but it's obvious that what happens, and it's explained that's one thing leads to another, and then you get Elphaba as a result of that affair.
Right.
And so that's like right smack dab in the beginning of the movie. So that's the level of morality we're in here.
Yes.
And I think it sets the tone well in that respect.
It certainly sets the tone well and explains, I think you're getting to this point, the entire worldview that we're operating in. And we can deconstruct that a bit, but let's just say it is indicative of very real worldviews.
Yeah. I'll add, there's no inclination or evidence or intimation at all that what the wife is doing is wrong in having this affair. There's not a line, there's not a framing of the scene, there's nothing that implies what she's doing is wrong by having an affair and cheating on her
kind of
husband.
just like, oh, this is something that just happens.
Yeah. And apparently in the book, it's much worse and much more explicit on those kinds of themes, but that's not in the musical.
I'm going to push back against that because there is definitely throughout the movie the theme of the father effectively hating his daughter, who he knows is not actually his daughter because she's a result. No, I think he does. There's
no evidence of that in any of the dialogue.
There's a suspecting of it, I think, that's implicit throughout the film. And I think that I think that element exists there. I was picking up on that at least.
The dad is perfectly happy. You see the birth of the Wicked Witch. The dad's perfectly happy right up until the moment that he sees that the girl is green. And then he immediately says, take it away.
Why do you think? I know that, of course, he's green, but I think there's something else implied there.
I guess you can say it's implied that he knows, but it's only implication. The explicit reason that's said again and again and again is because she's green, and that's what he's worried about. And in fact, that's why Elphaba's sister comes out a cripple, is because he's so worried about her being born green as well.
That's true. However, I do think there was an element here where he was like, something's wrong. And how this child came about, I think he's suspecting. I think that was throughout the film. I think there was this element of him suspecting something was off here the whole time. And I think maybe from the very beginning when they cue you into how she arrived on the scene, they were kind of hinting at it in various points in the movie. And I feel like the movie was assuming everyone who sees this has probably seen the musical because there wasn't much trying to hide who the backdoor man is.
No, there wasn't.
Yes, I think it was nuanced. But I do think there was a question in the father's mind. She's green, but I think there's more to it than just the fact that she's green skinned. But maybe I'm
so you can say there's a hint there, but it's no more than a hint because it's definitely not explicitly stated.
No, it's not explicitly stated.
Or there's no dialogue that even dialogue that hints at it. It's just a hint in the reaction he has.
I would say, though, even when you're dealing with racism, they do try to trace it to some, even if it's illogical, they do try to trace it, generally speaking, to some issue, some experience individuals have had that they then apply to everybody of that race.
In the real world, I don't know that that's evident in this musical.
Maybe.
Because let's dig in on racism. One of the big things that she's teased mercilessly for being green as a child, and there's nothing she can do about it, obviously. And she starts showing magical powers as she defends herself and her crippled sister. And it's just meanness for the sake of meanness on the part of the people teasing her. There's no kind of like, here's the justification for what they're doing, not that there could be.
Well, she's green.
It's just
she's
wrong.
Green. That's it. Right. That's all.
That's anybody who's ever been to school knows that.
Well, that's the reason. I was saying that's not a justification.
No, that's true.
It's just totally meanness.
Yeah. So you get this hint because her dad is cruel to her the whole time and only cares about his younger daughter. The nurse bear is the only person in Elphaba's entire life who's just good to her.
It's all right, little one. Shh. We'll look after you.
So her nanny, Dulcibert, raised her.
Later on, you get this another different element of racism. Of course, there's constantly this element of racism towards Elphaba because she's green. Even though it's not a race, there's not other green people in Oz. It's just her. But then there is an element of racism directed, we learn, from the wizard against all talking animals in Oz.
Right.
He explicitly says, I'm trying to point to the talking animals as the enemy so that everyone else can unite against them and be a unified people.
Sure.
So do we want to call this actually racism?
I was going to get to that too, Thomas.
Yeah,
I think I know where you're going with
yeah,
this.
I think
it's otherness.
It's otherness, I think, is a better way of putting it. An ostracization of the culture against LGBTQ people or the queer or stuff like that. I think those elements you could almost read more into it than I don't know that racism
I think
per
all
se.
of the above.
You could bring racism into it, but to what you're saying, there's only one green person.
It's a perception of immutable characteristics,
Yes.
whatever that may be.
So Elphaba is a stand-in for whichever immutable characteristic. I would say the animals are, the way I read it, almost complete stand-in for African Americans. And so let me lay out some points here. Oz is explicitly meant to be understood by the audience as fantasy America. I think that is absolutely the intention, and I will reference a song in the second movie, and it's an original song for the movie. It's actually not in the original musical.
There's no place like home.
Which is, of course, Dorothy's refrain from the movie that we all know and love. Elphaba's singing, "Why do I love this place that's never loved me, a place that seems to be devolving and even wanting to? But Oz is more than just a place, it's a promise, an idea, and I want to help make it come true." I think that line especially gives away the game that what you're talking about here is not Oz, it's the United States of America. I think that's almost explicit there. It's definitely implicit there. So Oz is America. I think Elphaba is whichever otherness. I think the animals who are depicted as having always been a part of Oz, always being integral to Oz, and yet looked down on for something they can't help. For instance, in the first movie, Goat Professor is teased by Glinda for not being able to pronounce her name right because her name is originally Glinda, and he says Glinda because apparently goats can't say Glinda. I didn't understand that. I thought that was stupid because that's how a goat would say it, right?
Yeah.
I was reading animals as almost one for one a stand-in for African Americans, but I could be wrong.
I was not seeing them as that. I was seeing them maybe as minority groups or something like that. I guess if you want to go in that direction.
I'd say minority groups at large.
Yeah, I'll give you that. It's not just African Americans, but I think the parallels are clear there.
Yeah, they're wanting to do what to them? Wanting to put them in cages. They're wanting to basically remove them effectively from society.
Yeah.
To me, that felt more like the question of immigration or illegal immigration or whatever it may be, trying to remove the element of within the culture that had been scapegoated, for lack of a better term. And that's what they're saying. The talking animals have been scapegoated by the humans for all humanity's problems because of climate change, I guess.
Yeah.
That was one of the other elements they were kind of showing there.
Wait, what about climate change? I missed that.
Remember how much of the world was being destroyed by the changing climate, and they were blaming it on the animals, which was the reason for why they were saying the animals.
Oh, so in a history lesson they talk about that, but it's not evident in the time we're living.
Right, but at the edge of Oz, the whole wasteland. Remember that they all.
But I think that's from the original movie, isn't it? I should have rewatched the original. I don't think there was any element of the wasteland encroaching on Oz.
Well, whether or not there is an element of environmentalism, there is at least the political element of blaming.
Yeah.
Finding as you said, Thomas's scapegoat.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's political strategy, frankly.
Right. It is a political strategy that has been used in some places at some times.
Yes.
It kind of implies, this movie, that Oz, of course, who the Wizard of Oz is. He's a charlatan from the actual U.S. who somehow finds his way into Oz and sets himself up as this fake wizard who doesn't actually have any magical powers, even though there are people with magical powers in this world. It's kind of implied that the way he does things is just like the way politics are done. It's just like he is this manipulator who lies and does whatever is necessary at any moment and has basically no scruples or sticking points at all. And the implication I think the movie was trying to make is everyone who has power behaves like this. Because you do see that with the other people who have power. You see it with Madame Morrible and the governor and then the new governor. You see it with a few people.
I don't necessarily fault the movie for showing that people in power have a tendency to abuse that power.
I would contend that's not what it's doing. If it was doing that, I would agree. I think what it's saying is this is what having power is like. It's like, this is how you behave. I don't think it presents another option. I don't think it says this is a corruption of what power is like. I think it's saying this is what power is like.
No, I think...
Well, when... To an extent, maybe, but then when Glenda assumes power, it's assumed that she's going to do it for good.
Yes. Okay, and we'll get to that. I said the first 20 minutes, and that's when I was like, oh, I'm looking at the face of evil. In the first 20 minutes, you get Galinda going to Shiz, which is the name of the university there, and she's being dropped off by her parents, and Glinda, the Good Witch of the North in the original, not the original movie, but the movie you all know and love, is this blonde, pink fairy lady who is just good and kind and nice. And she shows up to Shiz and she behaves good and kind and nice. But I think a deliberate choice they make is the moment she steps foot on Shiz, people instantly fall in love with her just from looking at her without her saying anything. And it's not explicit, but it's kind of implied it's because of her blonde hair, because she does this thing where she toss her hair and everyone swoons, basically.
Well, I think it's the concept that beauty attracts.
Yes. It is that, but it's everybody. It's just like instantly we are her peons now because she's the prettiest. And everyone else is depicted not homely, but just normal. You have Elphaba show up and she's green and everyone's like, ugh. And she goes through this whole thing where she's like, yes, I'm green. She has her list of questions that people ask her all the time. And you're supposed to feel bad for looking at this green person who's the only green person you've ever seen in the entire world of Oz and asking questions. You're supposed to feel bad about that. And you're supposed to also, I think, feel bad for thinking that Glinda is attractive. And thinking, oh, attractive is good. I like attractive people. There's also a complicated element here. Glinda is played by Ariana Grande, who is a Latina woman who does not have blonde hair, and she has dark eyes, and it comes off strangely. Looking at her in the outfit, it's what I call blonde face.
Oh, blonde face?
Blonde face, because you're looking at this blonde, and it's just like, ugh.
Well, they tried to do that.
Not that she's unattractive.
They tried to do that with Snow White.
Yes,
it's
the
same play.
Yeah.
I would say that probably more successful in this case.
They are
pulling it off.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, this is Oz. People look weird.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nuance in this movie. Unlike some of the criticisms we've given to some of these girl boss movies where the heroine or hero character can do no wrong.
Right.
That is not the case with this one. And I think there is a growth of all the different characters that I appreciated actually, that they kind of leaned into. Like even her list of like, okay, now I have to tell everybody who's going to ask me stupid questions about why I'm green.
Right.
And she already has a chip on her shoulder, and they kind of expose her and her own kind of self, I don't know if I want to use the word self-pity or just frustration with the fact that she's different, and then she always has to explain herself, and she just gets irritated with that. And yet, like you're pointing out, nobody's ever seen a green person before.
Right.
It's going to be questions that happen, and her getting frustrated with that reality is not flattering to her character. And so even though they point to her as probably the most moral person in the show or in the movie, they also show that she had warts. She had issues that she was not and needed to deal with, including how she looked at Glinda as shallow and of little value to her and just someone that she wanted to avoid at all costs.
This is a work of art. Like, this is, when I say it's hard to overstate my strong negative reaction to this movie. It's not because this is bad. It's not because it's not a good movie. It's not because it's not good art. It's like I'm looking at my opponent making a really, really good move, and I'm like, oh crap, I'm in trouble now.
Well, what is it that you find so objectionable as far as any of those themes? They're not like untrue. Racism exists. These different prejudices exist and have existed in our country's history. We know none of us would sit here and say we live in a perfect country.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that's why this is so complicated, because this is done really, really well. The depiction, I think, of the way people respond to beauty, the depiction, I think, of the way people respond to green people or whatever it is, furries or whoever in real life, the way people respond to power, everyone in Oz, and that's not hyperbole, everyone except the animals and Elphaba, just whatever word from on high comes down, okay, that's the truth, I'm never going to question that. And the only people who can see through the Gnostic truth are Elphaba and the animals who are persecuted minorities. That's the only people who can see it. Everyone else, there is actually one exception, and it's Prince Fiero.
Yeah.
Prince Fiero kind of sees it, but he's kind of jaded when we first meet him, and he's like, whatever, I can't do anything about it. I'm just going to be an airhead and just have as much fun as I can, because there's no point in trying to change it.
Well, I think what he hasn't run into anybody that actually he recognizes actually does see through it all.
Right.
Until he meets Elphaba. I think that's part of why he's kind of like, well, nobody seems to get it.
I wonder if there's a song close to the end that the wizard sings, and it might be somewhat explanatory of what you're getting at. And it is, the truth is what everyone agrees on.
Yeah.
That, I think, might be the worldview that we're looking at here. The term is, the truth is relative. Yeah. We're wrestling with all these themes, and they're real themes, but we're wrestling with them to what end if the truth is just what everyone agrees on?
Well, see, I don't think that it's preaching the truth is relative. I think it's challenging this movie.
You think so?
Oh yeah. The biggest villain is actually what's her face? Not the
Madame Morrible.
Yeah, Madame Morrible. She's actually the biggest
actual villain.
And she's the propagandist as well.
Yes.
All the rooms.
She's the political figure behind the curtain.
The scenes. And so there is a reality of lies being pushed and pushed and pushed, and people believing the lies and how it warps how they perceive the world and everything like that. That was clearly there. Now, whether or not you agree with what the author of the story is telling one way or another is kind of, it doesn't really matter, in that what it's trying to show is this principle. People hide the truth because they don't want the truth to free other people.
You're right. That's what it's saying. You are correctly identifying, I think, one of the themes in the story. The reason I am so strongly against this movie is because I think even that theme that you're picking out, that it's correctly identifying, that is, it seems true, and, you know, people say this in real life, and there's arguments for it. I think it is profoundly wrong on a fundamental level beneath even the term on its face. People want the truth. They want, you know, the simple truth. They want to decide how things are and then make it that way. I don't think that's actually how humans behave in the world. I think there is absolute truth in the world. That's the Grimoire, the book that there's this prophesied book that no one can read anymore, but people used to be able to read a long time ago. And one day someone will come who can read it. And of course, can you guess who can read it? Yeah, it's Elphaba.
Yeah.
I'll just pretend like
I didn't see that coming.
She can read it perfectly. She doesn't even quite know what she's saying always, but she can read it, and it, in a way, it's the source of all magic, or not the source, but it's the magic tome, but it's also thematically all the source of truth, kind of. But my point is, you're identifying a real theme that the story is trying to teach you underneath the story itself. And I think that's what I'm objecting to so strongly here, is those kind of underlying themes.
Well, like, for example, there's a theme of, is the villain created or is the villain innate?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's the idea of an origin of a story explains and even absolve a person from their becoming this villain.
Right. Well, that's an interesting question. So what do y'all think? Are villains created from outside, or are they born villainous from the beginning? Because that is the question that I think is presented in this story.
I think they're both.
I think it's both.
I think it's neither. Villainy is a choice.
No, I think it's both.
You choose to be a villain. You, just like Lucifer chose to rebel against God, just like Adam chose to eat the fruit, just like Herod chose to kill the babies at Jerusalem, at Bethlehem. Yeah. It's a choice. It's not, Herod wasn't born evil any more than any other human being was.
Well, except for the fact that every human being, since Adam was the only human originally that actually had an absolute free choice in this. Once he ate of the fruit, he condemned the rest of humanity to be born with an evil heart. And so you are born with a sinful nature. You're born with a sinful bent. You're born dead to God. And so when you are making choices, you're making choices that are based out of a motivation that is already in enmity toward the good. And so that's why I'm saying it's a both thing, because there can be circumstances by which that, well, let's be quite honest, God can reach in and change that heart and make that person alive to him and change their disposition. But there's also elements in which we can even the fallen can choose better or good things versus evil things. However, the nature of the villain is in every one of us. When I see reports or when I see programs about like murder mysteries or something like this, and they talk about some person and they say, well, that person could never murder someone. They just don't have it in their heart. I'm just like, I kind of roll my eyes, because it's like, actually every single one of us could do that. If pushed, if allowed to, if it wasn't for the restraining hand of God, all of us would be way more wicked than we are. So this is why I feel like there's an element of nuance in here where it's wrestling with this reality of, why are some people worse than others, or why are some people better than others? There's not a really good answer for that. It's not just, quote, choices. Choices are an outpouring of something even deeper, I would say. And this movie kind of explores that in a little bit.
My contention is that it's not honestly exploring any of those things. It is presenting itself as if it's doing that, but it's actually wanting it's a propaganda. It's wanting you to walk out saying, do we choose the villains in the world? Did we make Joseph Stalin a villain, or was he born villainous? Or was, he not really villain, misunderstood? And if you look at him with the right perspective, you'd see he was the only one who saw the truth all along, just like Elphaba.
Yeah.
I think that's how you're supposed to walk out of this movie.
Well, what's the difference between, I mean, this is what you could, to be extreme, the difference between Joseph Stalin and George Washington?
Yeah, well, George Washington didn't have lists and kill 20 million people.
Well, right, but then the question is, why?
Because he made better choices.
But why did he make those choices? This is where the hang-up always comes to, because it's kind of like the chicken and the egg question. What precedes the other? Yeah, you make a series of choices, but then let's go deeper. What is your motivation for the choices that you make? Why do people make the choices that they make? That element of humanity
is wrestling with that question. Why do people make these choices?
I think there's elements you could see in this movie. I think the fascinating thing for me about this movie, and I'll just be really quick about this, I thought it was fascinating to juxtapose one story from two drastically different angles. Because we were all used to the original movie, right? And we all know the Wicked Witch and the story, all that other stuff. And so we know that. What was fascinating about this is it's saying, hey, let's look at this from a different perspective. And watch the story in a way. And then the little bits and clips of the original story that come into it are kind of a fascinating way of looking at it and saying, it doesn't change that story at all. But when you see it from this perspective, you're saying, okay, that's kind of a fascinating element to a deeper understanding of, okay, from another perspective, this is what we're looking at. So I don't know. I thought it was kind of a fascinating think piece.
Everything you just said was wrong. Sorry, Thomas. It absolutely changes the original story from the movie. It's not the same story. It's a lie. It wants you to believe these are the same story. In the original story, the good witch has magic. She floats down on a bubble that she has conjured and then floats away on it. In this, it's a lie. It's a pretense. It's a mechanism. In the original story, the Wicked Witch is wicked. We see her by herself talking to her winged monkeys. She's just evil. It has to fundamentally change the story that it's based on, which is the movie, I would argue, in order to tell the story. It's not a different perspective. It is a complete retelling from a different perspective, but it's not the same story, and it's a lie that it wants you to think that it is.
Essentially what we're looking at is, and we're going back to the whole, this is a lore. There's an original book written in 1900, and then almost a reconstruction or a reexamination. It's almost like the David films that we watched, where it was written in. The stuff that was not written is now written in. It's implied based on somebody else's perception of that world. I guess you could say it's a lie if you don't agree that the original Wizard of Oz could have been expanded upon.
The original Wizard of Oz can be expanded upon. It was the movie was an expansion of the book. There's other things that expand on it without fundamentally altering Dorothy's story. Dorothy's story is different in this because of the changes that we know. She goes from being... So this is the...
Well, her perception is different because it's not different from Dorothy's perspective.
Right.
Because Dorothy, it's the same for her.
It's the same for her.
She knows the same information.
It's the audience that has a new perspective.
I think so.
Well, it is a little bit different. There's, at least from her perspective, there's the scene of the Tin Woodsman ginning up the entire city of Oz to go after the Emerald City, to go after the Wicked Witch, and how hateful he is. The Tin Woodsman is a sympathetic, kind character. Like, he's heartless in the story, but he's not really. Like, he clearly has a heart along. That's in fact the moral of the original story is the Tin Woodsman had a heart, and the Scarecrow had a brain, and the Cowardly Lion had bravery, and Dorothy had home with her the whole time on her shoes. So it does change that. Here's my big thesis, I think, for why I think I so strongly feel scared by this story. There's a thing that happened in history called the Ottoman Janissaries. This is, I know.
A deep dive with Sterling.
So the Ottomans were a Turkish people who came in, they conquered the Middle East, and they conquered up through Asia Minor into what was then Constantinople. They eventually conquered it. They fought Vlad Tepes in the Balkans, all sorts of stuff. But while they were doing all those things, what they would do is they'd go into these villages and they'd find the biggest, strongest boy at 8 or 9 years old, and they would take him and then they would train him up for 20 years or however long and to be a radical Muslim. That was explicitly what they were doing. They would train them to be radical Muslims. And then they would have this core of Janissaries. All of these boys, all the Janissaries were made of boys who have the same story. They were taken from their home village on the outskirts of the Ottoman Empire, trained up to be radical Muslims, and then unleashed on their home villages to destroy and radicalize their own people. But everything that made them one of their own people has been destroyed except their skin color and their eye color and stuff like that, and the fact that their relatives would recognize them. What the heck are you talking about, Sterling? I think this story, and I think something like The Last Jedi, I won't go into that, are Janissaries. They are trying to take cultural touchstones, items in the culture war around which community can rally, like they would rally around the biggest, strongest man in the village. And they're trying to corrupt them so deeply that they can never be a source of strength ever again. They can only ever be a source of weakness in the culture war. I need to write a paper on this. I know I sound crazy. I'm not crazy.
Well, it depends on your definition of crazy.
I don't think anyone who has seen the musical, I don't think anyone who's seen these movies is ever going to be able to watch the 1940, 38, whenever it came out, Wizard of Oz, ever again without thinking, oh, but really Dorothy's doing wrong here by killing the Wicked Witch, because the Wicked Witch was just misunderstood and was really the hero of the story all along. It can never be the thing it was before. Just like after The Last Jedi, Star Wars can never be the thing it was before, because now you know Luke goes on to be a complete and total loser.
Oh, it's not true. That's impossible.
It destroys these cultural touchstones and for all time if it has its way. And that's why I'm so scared of this, because it's really good at that, because it looks like a really good, interesting story that's just looking at a different perspective. But the fundamental philosophy all the way down is profoundly evil, is my contention here.
I can see where that makes sense in a lot of the movies that we've looked at over the years. And to an extent, I can see where you're coming from. I guess my only contention is The Wizard of Oz really such a cultural touchstone?
Right. My answer is, it's not necessarily for me. It was a huge phenomenon in its time. It was the first Technicolor movie. Huge phenomenon. But it's one of those things that's just like casually an American story that's not necessarily wholesome, but it's harmless, according to most people's view. It's an American story. It's obviously American. Dorothy keeps saying we're not in Kansas anymore. It's not necessarily that it was the most important pillar to be attacked by my conception, but it was another one on the list.
I see. So you would say that this is a more global approach of sowing or like a demise underneath cultural touchstones at large.
Yes.
Okay.
I see this as Americana as the original. The original came out of the book especially, but the movie subsequently comes out of a specific political environment that existed at the time in which it was written, and what was happening in the American politic at that era. And it is an expression and an analysis in a way of that from a certain perspective. This too is the exact same thing of our era, our American.
So it's in the same nature.
Yes,
of the
and
original.
so it's commenting on what's happening and what the author and everything sees in regards to elements within our culture and our politic currently. It's not so much aimed at, I want to destroy the old view or the old America or whatever it may be, that some, like Sterling would suggest it is. I don't see it as that. I see it more as it does have a view, it does have a perspective, politically speaking. I wouldn't agree with all its political perspectives in this, but it does have some interesting insights. But the thing about it, just like the old Oz, is as time moves on, as culture shifts, as people's perspective on a lot of these things are going to over time shift, this is going to be like The Wizard of Oz, I would say, of old too. It's going to be a story and a point in American history that is kind of talking or focusing on certain themes that were popular at this era. And I see it more like that. I don't see it necessarily as a destroying force that's destroying our cultural touchstones. It's just adding another cultural touchstone that it may do what Sterling says in that change the way people look at the original forever. Maybe. It may not. I don't know. It depends on how people ingest both. Maybe they see it so separate and distinct that they're seeing them as two different movies, two different things, whatever. So I see it more like that. I don't have near the red alarm alert on this one.
So I know earlier I said everything you said was wrong. What you're saying is not wrong. What you're saying is right in a way. I just think that the creators are being dishonest when they make that commentary. They are doing the things you're saying. They are providing that commentary you're saying they're providing. I just think they're doing it dishonestly.
I wouldn't say any more dishonestly than the original.
I absolutely would. I absolutely
Really?
would. Yeah.
No. Okay.
Well, I could be wrong about the original, and maybe the original's insidious too, but I don't know that political milieu as well as I know ours.
Everything's a psyop.
Yeah.
The Wizard of Oz is a psyop, everybody.
Yeah.
Well, with that, shall we get to the ratings?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I'll start. Woke free. I would give this a negative number, except that I don't want to throw off the scale. So I gave this a 0. I think this is woke in its atoms. I think every molecule is woke.
Okay. I gave it a 2. I think a very low score. I think that most of the themes are woke in origin, in nature, probably 90% of them. I think there are some themes that are correct and that are interesting to wrestle with, but it's like a psyop. When you intersperse lies with truth, you confuse the situation and you confuse the truth, so nobody knows anything. So that's kind of where I'm coming at with my 2 rating.
I gave it a 3. Yeah, I mean, it's got a number of those kind of traditionally woke tenets that we would point out. You know, the diversity, the Girlboss, a lot of the deconstruction themes,
The victim
and
mentality, oppressor mentality.
Yeah. It was also interesting that it doesn't lean as hard into certain elements that we would say is the radical left woke right now that I expected it to lean into.
There's no obnoxious lesbian kisses or gay kisses.
Yeah, it's not super duper overt.
Right. And so in that sense, I gave it a 3.
Adding to that, that's why
you think
I know
it's
I'm
so
giving
dangerous.
it a 0, but I think what it's doing is it's doing it all the things we object to, it's just doing it way better than the things that we have objected to previously. I think as a piece of art, holy moly, this is a piece of art.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot question that.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, so IQ. Thomas, you want to start that one?
Yeah, I give it a 7. I think it's well written. There are some plot holes, pretty sizable ones, kind of leave you a little wanting. So in that sense, and I don't know if it's because they didn't want to make the movie too long or if they just don't exist.
7 as well. It was well written. It is a piece of art.
Yeah. 7 for me as well. I took points off almost entirely. Like, there were no especially well-written lines of dialogue or anything. The music, the lyrics are good. The points I took off are because at the end, it seems like it's trying a little bit too hard to have suddenly everything turn out well when you've shown us the whole time that everything is corrupt at every layer all the way through. One point I will highlight is that Glinda ends up the ruler of Oz at the end of the story, and she's going to do good, but she's not doing good with good. She's doing good by lying. She's going to continue the methods and practices that the wizard put into place in order to try and affect the good change she wants to see out of the Ozlings, or whatever you call them.
Yeah, it's always means versus ends.
Ozians.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, Andrew, you want to do artistic value?
I also gave it a 7. It was great visuals, great songs. I mean, it's birthed in Broadway, which is, again, also a uniquely American medium of art. Great to listen to, great to watch.
Thomas?
I gave it a 9. This is my high score. It captures Oz. You feel like this is Oz. You feel like there's that connection to the original movie. The set design, the costume, the dance routines and everything, and how the songs. I specifically thought the one that was really creative was when they were in the library, and even the way they designed the library sections where they had the kind of turning hamster wheel kind of things. It was really fun, creative. It did have that element. This feels like Hogwarts.
Yeah.
So there was that little bit of magic feel to it.
So along the same lines, Thomas, I gave this a 10 for artistic value. I think the people involved in this had artistic sense at almost every single level. The visuals were spectacular, which they do need to be. This is based on that one of the first ever Technicolor movies with the big reveal where Dorothy goes from black and white to color. So everything has to be vibrant. The costumes have to be pretty looking. I think at every level it does that. I think the CGI looks good. I think the colors look good. I think the animals look good. I can't take points off on this. I just can't. Entertainment value, I gave this a 7. I for my own entertainment, I could have put this lower just because I had such a strong negative reaction, but it flows pretty well. I think stretching a 2.5-hour musical on Broadway into a basically 5.5 hours is a lot. You don't really feel bored. I mean, I got bored, but that's because of my particular reaction to this. I think as a piece of entertainment, it's a 7.
I give it an 8. It was entertaining. I mean, the flow was good. I can see why people like it.
Yeah, I gave it a 7. Very entertaining. Enjoyed it. It was certainly, as I said earlier in the podcast, if you're not one to think or read into all this stuff, you could sit down and just enjoy it.
Yeah. Legacy, I gave it a 10. Again, that's why I had such a profound reaction to this, is because it accomplishes what it wants to do, I think, about as well as it could hope to. I think even if you haven't seen this, I think you're going to generally know in 10 years, which is our measure for legacy, that Elphaba was the good person all along, and Dorothy kind of did something wrong by killing her in the original story. And I fear that you won't be able to separate that from the original 1940s, 38, whenever it was, movie.
I give it a 7. I do think it will have staying power. I mean, it's had staying power on Broadway.
Right.
It's always hard to surpass the original, and I don't know that this necessarily will surpass the original. The original is probably going to go down in history as one of the top films of all time, and this won't be. I mean, just it won't.
I gave it a 9 because of the legacy, and it fits well within the legacy. Sure, the original will be the top film. This will not be the top film. I don't think that any sequel ever is. If you want to call it a sequel, it's not really a sequel.
Right.
But, subsequent films are not usually the pinnacle item, but it is a continuation of a long legacy of many decades of very close fans and a cultural movement of, minority groups that really tend to identify with this. It's a cultural touchstone for a lot of people. So I think it has pretty good staying power.
My average ended up being 6.8. Thomas's was 6.8, and Andrew's was 6.4. So that gives a PopCon total average, so maybe you need to understand that this does not mean that we're recommending it if we give it a good rating, because the PopCon average is 6.6 repeating, so it's round up to a 7. But I don't think any of us would really recommend this.
No, I don't. I don't see it as near the threat that you do.
Yeah, I know that.
So, I mean, if you want to see it, go see it.
I wouldn't discourage people from seeing it.
I would discourage parents in the strongest possible terms from letting their little girls go watch this movie. That's been the Wicked and Wicked for Good episode from the Pop Culture Contrarians. We are brought to you by the Patriot Post, which is the oldest conservative news digest on the web. It's right and it's free. Go subscribe to that and subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a comment. Let us know what we should talk about next. And in the comments, lambast me. Let me know how stupid I am. Please bring all the hate comments. I want to hear them. Yes. I might do a reaction video or something.
Leave those comments, all the hate comments in the comment section. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye. See you later.